Hi Angus, we've just finished a live webcast. There's a few questions we weren't able to cover. But first of all, for people watching now, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself? What do you do?
I'm the chief executive of a company called Maciver, who runs sales forces, outsourced sales forces for consumer goods companies mainly, and for some financial services companies, calling on retail outlets for them, or independent financial advisors. So that's what I do now. Previous to this, I've worked for a number of companies such as Procter & Gamble, PepsiCo, Prudential, and latterly the group marketing director for William Morrison Supermarkets.
So let's just move on to the first question then. Someone asked what's been the biggest foul-up you've ever seen in relation to communication?
Well, they go from the mundane. I'm trying to think of the biggest foul-up. One of the earliest ones I came across was when we used to do lots of leafleting in Procter & Gamble, where it's a lesson in attention to detail, where you got the leaflet proofs such that the front page of the leaflet was at the top and the back page of the leaflet was at the bottom of the proof. And the guy who I'm still friends with checked all of the copy and everything was written perfectly, and that was great. Sent it to print, and when it was printed, there's coupons at the end of the leaflet. It was actually back to front, so that the back of the coupon was here and the front of the coupon was here, and so it's completely unusable for the 10 million homes it went to. So that was quite a big foul up, and clearly it was wasted because it couldn't be used. So that was just written off, and that was a lot of money for the brand he worked on. But there's other things like I worked for PepsiCo, and the Like a Prayer song that Madonna released just as she was the PepsiCo talent in the worldwide PepsiCo advertising meant that she was taken off air, and PepsiCo had the same problem with Michael Jackson at some other point. So there's lots of times when the celebrity has done something that means that if you've got celebrity advertising, you've got to take that off air, and you have to defend the fact you chose that celebrity in the first place. So that tends to be resolved through frantic public relations. I can't think of any other major things that, off the top of my mind, that's a major communication foul-up. The one that I found most difficult is when I worked with Morrison's. I was responsible for launching the Christmas collector card, where if you shop 5 times, collect the receipts, put it in a card, then you could get £20 off your Christmas shopping, or now £25 off your Christmas shopping. And we had a load of controversy on that, because people that were older were saying it was unfair because every shopping visit had to be £40 and they wouldn't pay £40, and it was not right that they couldn't get the £20 off even though they were loyal shoppers. And I found myself on numerous radio shows and doing some PR releases on explanations on why it was right for us to say people who spent most could get a discount, and it was not going to work for the company to give it to everybody. So those kind of things you just have to do remedial action through paper and press and radio.
So that's the only solution for something like that?
Yeah, or you can say sorry and run an effort in it, run another promotion, give more money away. But sometimes the business need is greater than the need to say sorry, so we weren't able to do that.
Okay. Moving on, we had another question about customer databases and the use of good quality data. What's your thoughts on databases and how they should be used?
Well, firstly, it's easy to say, of course, it's absolutely essential to have great quality data and to have it in a big customer database. So I like those. Where I think most people fall down with use of databases and data is that they don't know what question to ask of it. So when you've got the data, what do you do with it? And pointing analysts at a big database and saying, go on, use it in some way, it doesn't get you anywhere. You need to have, the business owner needs to ask questions of the data. So what do you want to find out? What would be interesting? What would make the business do something different? So I'm trying to think of an idea. We had got basket data in Morrison's, we knew who were our most loyal customers, not by name but by basket. So we knew the people that kept coming in. We'd found a method of identifying those people. So that's great. So we know that. Now what do you do with it? Well, what do they buy? Well, they buy the same things as anybody else. So what patterns are you looking for? And one of the great ways I found was we would ask regional questions on listing products, ranging. So in the north of England, our top 5% most loyal customers, what are the top 10 wines they buy? Versus the south of England, the top 5% most loyal customers, what kind of wines did they buy? And were there any wines that were shared on the list? And the answer is there were no wines shared on the list. An entirely different set of top 10 wines in the north of England to the south of England. South of England all drink Chardonnay, and the north of England still drink Hock. So that was largely, it was also age dependent, but that was very insightful to the wine team, because that then said they had to cover a different set of needs in the south of England to the north of England for our most loyal customers. So that's an example of, I've got a ranging question by geography. How does that work out? That's the most important thing. The database itself is completely useless unless you know what to ask it.
Okay. How do you see social media playing a part in communication? It's obviously the buzz, so how do you see that fitting in with communication?
Well, I think it will probably grow as more and more people have internet on the go. But I'd see it as a part of a communication plan, not a replacement for communication. And I think social media is also quite dangerous in that a lot of brands sort of fall in love with the idea that they are an interesting friend for people on social media. And they think they're building up a one-on-one relationship with their customer, but actually customers don't see brands that way. They don't see them as an individual friend. They do still see it as business. And so I think you just have to be careful about using it. But is it going to be a core part of what businesses use in the future? Yeah, I'm certain. Either to communicate with their own teams or to communicate with customers, giving them news and inviting response and input. And some businesses are using it very well, and so it will be a core part of what they do. You can set up panels, you can have discussions, there's lots of things you can do on social media with interested customers. But just remember that they do tend to be self-selecting, and we talked about that in the main webinar, but you will interact with people who want to interact with you, and because they've got a choice. And so therefore you might not get the whole picture on social media. You might be missing out an entire swathe of the population who don't interact on social media, who may hold a different view. So they might not be representative of all of your customers. So it's useful and insightful and informative, but it may not be the whole answer.
Okay. Just finally then, small company, not particularly internet savvy, what could it be doing to improve its online marketing?
Well, it depends on whether the company's internet savvy or their customers are internet savvy. And I guess if the response to both is, if the internet is a good way to find to get to disparate customers. So I don't know. I think the questioner mentioned that they had 50 customers. The first thing I'd say was 50 customers. It doesn't take an awful lot to get around to see them face to face. It does depend on where they are, but I'd be thinking I want to get to see the 50 customers rather than I want to communicate to them via the internet. However, if that is difficult, then I'd be looking for easy things to do that the customers might be interested in. So what might be useful for them? So an example in financial services is that the independent financial advisor quite often doesn't have the time to give up to see a lot of representatives from different insurance companies, because if they saw all of the representatives, they'd be seeing them instead of their customers. So they want to manage the time in which they interact, to a certain period of time. But they still want to find out about new products. So how do you find out about new products in a way that's easy and fast, without having to see a rep in a meeting? And one of the ways that we do that is through webinars. So there'll be somebody explaining what the new product does, video it, put it out on the internet, and then the independent financial advisor can choose when to watch that, and can shorten it and keep it in bite-sized chunks means they're not giving up customer face time in order to see a rep. So from not interacting online at all to they'll interact online because there's a real need for them and something beneficial for them to do it. And that's what I'd say is you've got to find what's useful for your customer to interact online. You can't just start doing emails and hope that they're going to read them.
Okay, that's great.
Okay.
Thanks very much.